Love this series that you're doing.
Thank you for being one of my very first guests on this brand new series.
I think right now everyone's trying to figure out who they are outside of their job, because COVID has forced us all to really come face to face with like who we are as a human. And before it was easy, I was like, I would give my professional background. So I'm a diversity program manager for Google Cloud. I've worked at Google for 5 years now. I just had my Googleversary is what we call it. And I've worked across a lot of fields. So working in staffing, working in talent programs and events. I worked at Verily, which is Google's sister company for a while. And now I'm back at Google within employee engagement. I also do some diversity consulting for small town businesses in rural areas, which is exciting. But I think more than ever during COVID, my pitch is I'm a human in a constant state of becoming, navigating ambiguity like a boss. I'm lesbian, Black, Spanish, Native American. All of that is really real for me right now during this racial uprising. I'm an auntie, sister, daughter. And I think what I've come to terms with for me is that I'm really striving every day to better love the parts of me that society has deemed invaluable. And that's the woman in me, that's the Black in me, that's the queer in me, that's all of that, right? And I believe that it's my purpose to dismantle oppressive systems and create a world where people have equitable access to live a life that is full of success, whatever that means to them.
This is why I love you as my friend and as a person. Tell everyone, how did we meet? Do you remember?
I do. Of course I remember. Of course I remember. It was advertising week in New York City, and there was a girls' lounge event, 2016. So it's been a while, like 4 years. But I remember you, Ali, so clearly because I was sitting at this table. I didn't really know many people. I think I came with one friend, and everyone kept coming up to you. You were sitting at the same table as me. Everyone kept coming up to you, and everyone knew you. You knew everyone. You were so excited, and I saw how loved you were, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I meet one person tonight, it's gonna be this. Like if I'm connected to one person, and it was gonna be you.
You have all of these amazing jobs and titles and what you're doing. Like I'm so impressed. These are big, complex things and topics. Like, one, how did you get here?
I got to where I am through my network. And I believe, like Lindsay Christian, he said that your network is your net worth. And I took that to heart. And this was during my time in New York. And I was like, that's fire.
Your network is your net worth. I love that.
Exactly. Right, that's so good. And so I learned that through that group that I was part of, and I really believe that for myself. I come from humble beginnings. My parents, they weren't able to go to college, right? Like I was raised in farm town, and now I'm like at a big company in tech, right? And the way that I got from there to there, right? Like it doesn't make sense except for the fact that I clung on to people who knew more than me, who could teach me, who could invest in me. And I believe that we have to humble ourselves. And I think humility is one of the main things that got me where I am, because I'm the first to be like, I don't know that. Like, can you teach me? Can I learn from you? Like, and so I've always put myself into a position where I've got great mentors. And I think that comes from asking for what you need. And I do that quite well, especially as women and people of color. We're afraid to feel needy. And we don't want to feel like we're that friend who always calls when they need something. And I think that if we can do more of that, and we can bank on those around us to invest in us and give them the opportunity to do that, then I think that we can see success.
A big part of Boss is to pay this forward. When you think of companies that you want to work for, I imagine that Google's on the top of most people's lists, or somewhere in it potentially, right? My husband works there, again, in full disclosure. What's your advice for individuals that would want to come work for Google in various capacities, but also everyone that's been furloughed, laid off, didn't have jobs beforehand? Like, there are a lot of people looking for just a paycheck right now.
I think that we've got to come together as a collective. I think we're so accustomed to doing things on our own and trying to be independent and like editing our own resumes and prepping for interviews. And I've had some friends tell me that I've had friends be like, I just got a job at Google. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you applied. I didn't know you were interviewing. I didn't know any of this. And I get like a little bit offended because I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Like I could have supported you through it. And they're like, well, I didn't know if I was going to get it. And so people are so afraid they're not going to get the job and they don't want to be embarrassed by applying for a job, telling everyone they're applying, trying to get help and not getting it, that like they're not reaching out to their network. And so I always tell people like, whether you're going to get this job or not, like loop me in, let me help you, let me support you. I want to be there for you. And it could be the difference, right? Of like me putting through a referral and then being taken a little bit more seriously, or the interviewers having a little more context in their background to them getting that job. So I would encourage people to leverage the people around them. The data says is that women and people of color are underleveled, underpaid, underappreciated. And so we need to be advocating for ourselves and we need to tell our own narrative.
Yes, yes, yes. You are your own best publicist. I feel like I've been saying that for years and years and years.
We need leaders who are courageous. What we have going on right now is this world of uncertainty, and we're looking to leadership to pave the way. And I think that in a lot of cases, leaders have been stepping into paths that are already paved for them, right? Where it's like, the attributes that a leader needs. They need to be like smart and creative, and they need to be able to problem solve, and they need to be eloquent speakers, and like all of these things, right, that we think about. But I think we need leaders who are courageous, and I believe. My friend Alexis Jones, I talk about her all the time. She says courage is earned. And I think that right now is a time where the world is fearful and there's so much uncertainty, and we need leaders to step up, stand up for what they believe in, and not be stuck in the fear. But I think that if you can work through that fear, then you can earn courage and you can earn bravery in this space and inspire those around you. And I'm speaking in the space of really supporting people who are underrepresented and oppressed, right? We see this happening with COVID. We see this happening with racial uprising, with Black Lives Matter. We see this happening with the trans community right now. And leaders are like, I'm scared to say the wrong thing. I'm scared to do the wrong thing. So they do nothing and they're complacent. And that's not what we need from leaders. We need leaders to step through the fear, step into courage, and say something, do something to support the creation of a more equitable world.
Yes. I feel like you've probably been asked this 500 times. So tell me, don't ask me this again. How can leaders and people be better allies and actually push things forward, make impact, and change those numbers, in your opinion?
Yeah, I thank you. I appreciate that. not Google's opinion. I think that I always believe that allyship is sacrifice. I believe that it's not something that people will be like, well, I'm an ally, it's who I am. And it's like, no. Allyship is not who you are. It's a verb. It's what you do. And so I think that leaders need to own their allyship journey and look at their realm of influence and look at the systems that they have power and control over, and they need to take action. It's hard because I think that folks are like, well, I'm looking for the benefit, I'm looking for the ROI, and it's like, oh, you need to sacrifice. This needs to come at a loss to you and a benefit to others. A lot of pressure on DEI experts right now, especially because of the climate and everything that's happening. There's pressure to produce overnight, and this is something where it's like it was a couple hundred years in the making of these systems of oppression. We can't fix them in a few months.
What is the most important skill that leaders need for the future of work in one word?
Empathy.
Name your career role model or favorite boss.
Dr. Myosha McAfee. She's the founder and head of the Center for Racial Equity and Systemic Transformation at Google. She's great.
Favorite programming language?
Ruby.
Ooh. Book that everyone needs to read.
I mentioned Annie Jean-Baptiste and her book, Building for Everyone. Expand your market with design practices from Google's product inclusion team is the full title.
One thing that you'll commit to do in 2020 to help pay it forward.
I'm currently, so I'm investing right now in my hometown and expanding their understanding of DEI. Hey, okay, one, I love you, and I'm so thankful for this time with you. But I think it's important, everyone, take care of yourselves. It's not an easy season of life right now. I think we need to recognize that and invest in ourselves so that we can be at our best to invest in people around us.
Couldn't, I, mic drop.